Underbelly is an Australian television true crime drama series which broadcasts on the 9 network. Each series is based on real-life events. There have been 6 series in total. The 2014 series titled Fat Tony and Company is a sequel to the first series but is not branded under the Underbelly title. Series overview. Synopsis: the first series is based on the book Leadbelly, Inside Australia's Underworld, by journalists John Sylvester and Andrew Rule. The series also borrows the title Underbelly from a previously successful series of 12 true crime novels by the same authors. 3 direct tie-in novels, based on the first 3 seasons, were also later published by the same authors as part of the series, and a separate 16th book was published in 2010. The 4th series is based on the book Razor by crime author Larry Reiter, which was subsequently republished as a tie-in. A 5th tie-in novel, by Andy Muir, was published for the final series. Despite being part of the Underbelly series, the first 12 books have never been republished with the famous Underbelly logo, and the logo was only used from books 13 to 18, Incorporated Golden Casket, and the republishing of Razor. The 5th series titled Underbelly, Badness is based on Sydney underworld figure Anthony Rooster Parrish, his brother Andrew and their associates, and is set between 2001 and (2012), broadcast from August 13, 2012. The series is the only season that did not receive a tie-in novel. A 6th series titled Underbelly, Squizzy, based on the events surrounding Joseph Squizzy Taylor set between 1915 and 1927, began airing on July 28, 2013. 3 telemovies called The Underbelly Files aired in 2011. The movies were titled Tell Them Lucifer Was Here, which is about the 1998 murders of Victorian police officers Gary Silk and Rod Miller and the subsequent manhunt for their killers. Infiltration is about the story of Australian police detective Colin McLaren's infiltration of the Calabrian Mafia in Griffith, New South Wales, which saw dozens of underworld figures imprisoned, and The Man Who Got Away, which tells the story of David McMillian, a drug smuggler and the only Western man to ever escape from Bangkok's Klong Prem Central Prison. All 3 aired on the 9 network in February 2011. In September 2011, a New Zealand version of the series premiered on TV3, titled Underbelly NZ, Land of the Long Green Cloud. The 6-part miniseries was the first Underbelly production to be produced and financed outside of Australia. The series detailed events beginning in the late 1960s to and throughout the 1970s and told the origin of the Mr. Asia drug syndicate and its original leader Marty Johnston. The series is somewhat a prequel to the series A Tale of Two Cities. An American version has also been announced on the network channel States, though nothing else has been confirmed at this stage. Series Underbelly Series 1 focuses on events in Melbourne which occurred between 1995 and 2004, referred to in the press as the Melbourne Gangland killings, in which 36 criminal figures and others were killed, and the transformation of Carl Williams from harmless driver into one of Australia's most notorious drug kingpins. Underbelly, A Tale of Two Cities. Series 2 is a prequel to the first series and focuses on events that occurred in Sydney and Melbourne between the years 1976 to 1987. Underbelly, The Golden Mile. Series 3 is the sequel to A Tale of Two Cities plus a prequel to the first series and focuses on events that stemmed from the King's Cross nightclub scene in Sydney between the years 1988 to 1999. The activities of corrupt King's Cross police officers are most notably Trevor Haken and Chuck Fowler and their actions are mainly depicted in the series, and some of these characters reprise their roles from the 2nd season. The Wood Royal Commission into Police Corruption, which occurred in 1995, is also prominently featured. Underbelly, Razor. Series 4 is set in Sydney during the Roaring 1920s, when organised crime in Australia began. It's the story of the bloody battle between the unregistered trademark's most feared vice queens, Tilly Devine and her rival Kate Lee. The series is based on the Ned Kelly award-winning book Razor, by Larry Reiter. The series includes an ensemble cast including actresses Chelsea Preston Crayford and Danielle Cormack portraying Devine and Lee respectively. Underbelly, Badness. Series 5 is set in modern-day Sydney between 2001 and 2012, tells the story of underworld figure Anthony Rooster Parrish and the efforts of the NSW police force's strike force Juno to bring him to justice. The cast includes Jonathan LaPaglia as Anthony Parrish, Jodie Gordon, Matt Nable, Josh Cullen-Tart, Erin Jeffrey, Jason Montgomery, Holly Andrew and Leanna Walsman. Underbelly, Squizzy . Series 6 is between 1915 and 1927 in Melbourne and tells the story of one of the city's most notorious criminals, Squizzy Taylor, who made an appearance in Underbelly, Razor, which was set in 1920s Sydney. Justin Rosniak did not reprise his role as Squizzy as Jard de Paris took over the role. Season ratings. Underbelly, Files Telemovies. In early 2010 the 9 Network announced that 3 separate stand-alone crime telemovies would continue the Underbelly franchise. Known by the collective title Underbelly, Files, the first was Tell Them Lucifer Was Here, the second Infiltration and the third The Man Who Got Away, and premiered on Australia's 9 Network early in the 2011 ratings season. Underbelly Files, Tell Them Lucifer Was Here equals. Tell Them Lucifer Was Here depicts the murders of Victorian police officers, Gary Silk and Rod Miller, which occurred in 1998, and shows the enormous efforts of the Lorimer Task Force in leading the manhunt for their killer or killers. It stars Brett Klimo, Jeremy Cooley, Todd Lassons, Greg Stone, Dimitri Bavis, Ditch Davey, Jane Alsop, Annie Jones, Paul O'Brien, Daniel White, Chris Bunworth, James Taylor, Craig Blameris, Jasmine Dare, Marshall Napier, Robert Taylor, Shanti Peasett and Lee Cormie, with a return guest appearance by Don Haney as Nick the Russian Wraith, the same character he played in the original Underbelly series. The movie had its premiere screening across Australia on the 9 and WIN networks on Monday 7 February 2011, quickly followed by an encore screening on GEM on Sunday 13 February 2011. Late in 2010 this telemovie hit a legal snag as part of a pending court case in the NSW law courts, which resulted in a slightly altered version of Lucifer being broadcast in Sydney and NSW on Monday 7 February. The version screened in NSW omitted one particular scene and changed the names of a number of individuals in the case, however in an oversight, the subtitles were not edited and showed the original names. Underbelly Files, Infiltration . Infiltration is an adaptation for screen from an autobiographical novel written by ex-cop Colin McLaren. He and his police partner lived undercover in Griffith, New South Wales for a number of years, in order to infiltrate the very closed and deadly mafia community there. Colin slowly befriended the Romeo family and eventually became a dear and trusted family friend and confidant to Mrs. Romeo. Much to the Romeo family's shock and betrayal, all is exposed, and leads to broken hearts and death. The 2-hour telemovie aired on February 14, 2011 and stars Sullivan Stapleton as Colin McLaren, Jessica Napier as Jude, Tottie Goldsmith as Sarah, Cassandra Clementi as Chelsea McLaren, and co-stars Valentino Del Toro, Buddy Dornown, Glenda Linscott and Henry Nixon. Underbelly Files, The Man Who Got Away . The Man Who Got Away tells the story of David McMillan, who was a British-born Australian drug smuggler and the only Westerner in history to escape from Klong Prem prison in Bangkok. It stars Toby Schmitz as David McMillan and Claire van der Boom as McMillan's partner Clelia Vigano. The cast also features Jeremy Sims, Erin Jeffrey, Nicholas Eddy, Brendan Cole, Freya Stafford, Josh Lawson, John Orsisk, William Zappa, Heather Mitchell and Deirdre Rubenstein. Also features Anthony Tsingers, as David's dad. The Man Who Got Away premiered on the 9 Network on Monday 21 February 2011. Official sequel. Fat Tony and Company . Fat Tony and Company was confirmed on August 3, 2013. Production for the series began on August 5, 2013. Based on Tony Mokbel, the series covered the manhunt for Mokbel that lasted 18 months and dismantled a drug empire and was also filmed in Greece. The series saw the return of Robert Mammon as Mokbel, Vince Colosimo as Alphonse Gangitano, Guyton Grantley as Carl Williams, Leigh Hill as Jason Moran, Madeline West as Danielle Maguire, Simon Westaway as Mick Gatto, Gerard Kennedy as Graham Kinneberg and Kevin Harrington as Louis Moran. International versions. American version. On June 22, 2010, it was announced that the channel, Stets, would remake the Underbelly series. It would not be based on the original series, instead the writers would look for American gangs and rewrite situations in Underbelly, A Tale of Two Cities, replacing character traits and outcomes. New Zealand version. This six-part miniseries aired on TV3 in New Zealand from August 17 to September 21, 2011. Underbelly NZ, Land of the Long Green Cloud is set in New Zealand between 1972 and 1980. Events depicted include the origins of the Mr. Asia drug syndicate and its original leader, Marty Johnston. Though not a part of the Australian series chronology, this series is partly a prequel and partly runs concurrently with events in Underbelly, A Tale of Two Cities. Main characters include Marty Johnston, Andy Mayher and Detective Constable Ben Charlton. Cast and characters. Home video releases, DVD, Blu-ray, DVD box sets. Underbelly Files NSW release, Victoria release. Underbelly NZ Video game. In October 2012, Underbelly, Skirmish, the first Underbelly game was released on the iTunes App Store. The game is available for iPhones and iPads. An Android version was in production with a release date scheduled prior to December 2012. The game has a cops versus robbers gameplay mechanic, with the player able to choose between playing as a cop, or as a member of the Rough Company. The game was produced by Underbelly's producers, Screen Time, and Transmedia Production Company, The Project Factory, with development by Epiphany Games. Notes. References. External links, official website, Underbelly at the Internet Movie Database.